Hey guys, tonight's story. It starts with a chill that gets right into your bones. It starts with a bed that crunches every time you move, and a goat breathing a little too close to your ear. You've just woken up inside a one-room hut, a place where the walls seem to weep. The roof above you mutters to itself, and it feels like someone's idea of insulation was to stuff your mattress with old cabbage leaves and a lifetime of regrets. Your breath fogs up the air, like it's gossiping about all your life choices. And your toes, well, your toes have pretty much filed for separation from the rest of your body. But hey, before you get too cozy in all this misery, take a quick second to gently tap that new hype button YouTube just rolled out. It really, truly does help the little guys like me push through that algorithm. And maybe take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling we have here. And do me a favor, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is out there, drifting off with us from all around the world. All right, now get comfortable. Let the day just melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You wake up coughing, and I don't mean the polite kind of cough. Not the kind that just suggests maybe you need a little sip of something warm. No, this is the kind of cough that comes from sleeping in a room where the air itself has a texture. And that texture is mostly soot and a series of poor decisions. The fire has completely given up. What's left behind isn't even embers, just a pile of ash that's pretending it still matters. A soft, moody glow is sulking underneath a collapsed little triangle of charcoal, radiating about as much warmth as a dead stare from your Aunt Bertha. Something shifts right beside you. A foot, and it's not yours, plants itself firmly right on your shin. A warm gust of breath curls against the back of your neck. It's slightly moist, questionably scented, and has an alarmingly steady rhythm. You try your best not to breathe it in, just in case it's the goat. It might be your brother. Or it might be your brother and the goat sharing the same space. The goat, to her credit, is a much better sleeper. The hut is so much darker than it should be. It's morning technically, but the light is doing its absolute best to stay outside, probably out of self-preservation. The thatch roof sighs above you. The walls creak like they're seriously reconsidering their life choices. And the window, just a single square of glass so wavy it looks like it might be soup, sweats cold down its inner panes. Little rivers of ice are inching their way toward the floor like a bunch of reluctant snails. Your blanket is still mostly wrapped around your shoulders, although someone has definitely stolen about half of it in the night. It was probably your sister. She's got that look about her. The one that says, "What blanket?" All while being very much surrounded by a cocoon of wool. Your straw mattress crunches when you move, loudly and accusingly. Bits of it have already migrated into your clothes. One particularly enthusiastic stalk has somehow made its way deep into your ear. You pull it out slowly, and it comes with a sound that's a lot like a confession. You sit up, which immediately turns out to be a mistake. Your back pops in 5 different places. Your neck tries to join in on the fun, but changes its mind about halfway through. Your breath clouds the air right in front of you, just hanging there like a ghost that isn't quite ready to move on. It's cold. Not the sharp, crisp kind of cold that wakes you up and makes you think of snowflakes and holiday songs. No, this is the kind of cold that crawls up your sleeves and decides to set up camp right between your ribs. It whispers to your joints and settles deep in your bones like an old relative who just refuses to leave. Someone groans from under the pile of children and chickens on the far side of the room. It's the sound of a man waking up in a bed that was made for 4 people but currently holds 8, plus a broom and possibly a duck. No one even acknowledges it. This is not the time for conversation. This is the time for silent suffering and pretending you slept a whole lot better than you actually did. The fire needs to be relit. Everybody knows it. And nobody wants to be the one to do it. You glance around the room and make accidental eye contact with your youngest sibling, who immediately fakes being asleep by letting his mouth fall open in a way that only children and recently concussed villagers can manage convincingly. The goat sneezes. Someone curses quietly, and the foot is still on your shin. You consider bravery for a moment. True bravery. The kind where you get up, crawl over 3 different limbs and a sleeping dog, and coax life back into the fireplace without dying of smoke inhalation. You also consider just staying where you are and letting nature decide who freezes to death first. Eventually, shame wins. Not by much, just enough. Your toes hit the dirt floor, and you remember that dirt can be cold. Impressively so. The sensation shoots right through you like a warning from your ancestors. You shuffle across the room, each step a careful negotiation with the straw, the dust, and the faint crunch of something you really hope wasn't once alive. You find the fire with your fingers, some brittle twigs in the corner, a spark just waiting in the flint. It takes 3 tries, then 6, then a quiet, one-sided conversation with God. Finally, a hiss, a flicker. A tiny little flame licks the edge of the kindling, and then it dies. You whisper some encouragement to it, possibly some threats. You try again. This time it catches. The fire crackles, like it's pretending it was never out in the first place. You feed it slowly, first sticks, then larger pieces of wood, then a chunk of the broken stool nobodies used since the back leg betrayed Uncle Hal during Epiphany. Warmth starts to tiptoe back into the room. Just a little. Enough that the goat makes a pleased sort of noise and shifts closer to the hearth. Enough that your sister releases her death grip on the corner of the blanket and lets you have it back. Not all of it, of course. Just enough. Behind you, the hut begins to stir. Someone farts. Someone else immediately denies it. The dog stretches with a groan that sounds almost theological. And for just a moment, you think you smell bread, but it's probably just the smoldering edge of the stool. You lie back down, your shoulders steaming faintly now that the heat's returned. The foot is finally gone from your shin. The breath that was on your neck has repositioned itself to your elbow. The goat is breathing deeper now, and the fire, as traitorous as it is, burns quietly like it never even left. You're lying on a mattress that crunches every time you breathe. The straw is supposed to be dry, but there's a dampness to it, like it still remembers a flood, or at least a very enthusiastic goat. Bits of it stick right through the cloth, poking you like needles that have serious boundary issues. One has lodged itself right under your shoulder blade, and it makes its presence known every single time you move. You try shifting just slightly to one side, hopping for some mercy. The mattress responds with a squeal that sounds exactly like someone stepping on a mouse that just insulted their mother. You freeze, waiting to see if the noise woke anyone else up. It doesn't. Someone snores. Someone else coughs into the darkness with the intensity of a man trying to exorcise his own lungs. The goat lets out a long, slow sigh. You think it's a sigh. It could also just be judgment. Either way, she clearly doesn't appreciate your struggle. Your straw mattress, which was generously donated by the barn last harvest, has what you'd call a distinct personality. It rustles ominously whenever you're still and groans whenever you're not. There's always something poking you somewhere. And every time you think you've finally found a soft spot, it turns out to be someone's elbow, or worse, someone's foot. You swear the mattress actually shifts during the night. Not just settles, it shifts, like it's trying to inch away from you, tired of being blamed for all your spinal issues. You fluff the corner with one hand. Straw dust puffs up into the air like a cloud of powdered complaints. You cough once, then twice, then you inhale carefully through your mouth to avoid another round of that atmospheric barnyard. Laying back down, you try to adjust your limbs into a position that doesn't press directly against straw, or the floor, or a sibling. There isn't one. Your head is resting on a pillow that might have held feathers once, long before they all escaped in protest. What's left inside feels like mashed potatoes that just gave up on life. You punch it into shape and immediately regret it as your knuckles find something with sharp corners. It might be a stick. It might be a chicken bone. You don't ask questions like that anymore. The bed bugs, of course, are wide awake. You haven't actually seen them, but you know they're there. You can feel their confidence. They walk with the arrogance of creatures who know there's no plan B for you. You scratch your ankle, then your neck, then what's left of your dignity. The mattress offers absolutely no support, emotional or otherwise. Someone to your left shifts. The bed responds with a theatrical creak. A foot brushes against your knee. You whisper no into the dark like it might actually matter. It doesn't. The foot remains and possibly grows roots. You close your eyes and try to imagine what it would be like to sleep on something soft, something with layers, something with boundaries like a cloud or a very friendly sheep. But you're a peasant. So you sleep on straw because straw is free, and beds are just social agreements between you, the earth, and whatever crawled in with you last night. You asked your mother once if you could have a blanket between you and the mattress. She said no, because the mattress was asterisk the blanket. Then she just laughed and told you about the winter of '86, when they had to sleep on snow wrapped in nothing but hope. The thing is, this bed is still so much better than the floor. You've tried the floor. It's colder, it's harder, and it's much less forgiving. The straw at least makes an effort. It's a loud, splintery, itchy effort, but an effort nonetheless. You tell yourself that each little stab is just your mattress giving you feedback, some constructive criticism, motivation to move up in the world, or at least to move sideways. You finally settle into something that resembles comfort, which really just means your limbs have gone numb in just the right combination that you no longer feel most of the straw. The mattress stops creaking. The night exhales all around you. The fire murmurs its slow, quiet return. You allow your body to sink just slightly, like a spoon into a bowl of very crunchy porridge. It's not a good bed. It's barely even a bed. But it's yours. It smells like hay and onions and a little bit of goat, but it holds you in its own terrible way. And when sleep finally comes, it comes like a blanket made of straw and a series of bad decisions. But it's still sleep. And that's enough. You have 3 blankets. You call them blankets because it makes you feel like a person, but deep down, you know the truth. One of them used to be a curtain. It still has the rod loops on the top, which sometimes get tangled up in your hair when you turn over too fast. It's thin, it's scratchy, and it holds heat about as well as an apology from your older brother. The second one smells unmistakably of pickled onions. Nobody knows why. You've washed it twice even, but the scent just returns each time like a loyal, smelly ghost. The third is a burlap sack that someone cut open, probably in a moment of pure desperation. It's rough, it's stiff, and it has writing on the side that used to say TURNIPS. You try not to read it at night. It just makes the cold feel personal. You lay them out like a sad lasagna. The curtain on top, the sack in the middle, and the onion blanket closest to your skin. Because at least it's warm, even if you smell like a root cellar. You tell yourself, this is fine. This is strategic layering. This is science. But science doesn't explain why the warmth leaves your body within seconds, like it's been personally offended by your choices. You roll yourself into a little bundle, and you call it a cocoon. Your sister calls it giving up. She's not wrong. Her blanket isn't much better. It's an old tapestry with a hole the size of ambition, and you watch her wrap it tight around her shoulders like she's preparing for some kind of medieval bank heist. Across the room, your cousin is using what might be an actual curtain rod as a body warmer. You sort of envy his innovation. The dog, at least, knows what he's doing. He slinks across the dirt floor with the confidence of a creature that has found every single warm spot in the house. He gives you a long look, half contempt, half opportunity and just waits. You lift the onion blanket as an invitation. He slides in without a moment of hesitation and plants himself firmly against your stomach, a living furnace that just happens to have fleas. He shifts once, turns in a slow circle, then flops down with the weight of inevitability. You exhale. That helps. With the dog added, your warmth increases by a small but measurable margin. You can feel your fingertips again. Not in a joyful, life-affirming way, but more of a these aren't entirely frostbitten kind of way. It's enough. You whisper a quiet prayer to Saint Warmth, even though no one's ever confirmed if that's a real saint or just something your mother made up during one of her particularly sarcastic advents. Either way, you offer him your best thoughts, and you promise to be less of a disappointment tomorrow. The blanket stack shifts as your brother turns over beside you, pulling half the curtain with him. You fight back with your knees. The sack crinkles in protest. The dog grumbles, but he does not move. Nobody apologizes. This is war, but it's also bedtime. You hear the wind outside the hut, clawing against the walls like it's trying to join the sleepover. You pull the curtain blanket tighter around your shoulders and tuck the oniony edge under your chin. Your toes are still cold. You consider tucking them into the dog's belly, but the last time you did that, he farted so aggressively you seriously considered moving to a monastery. Someone sneezes. The echo bounces off the low ceiling beams and stirs the straw over in the corner. You think about asking if they're okay, but you already know they aren't. Nobody is okay. That's not really the point. The point is survival. And your patchwork pile of discarded textiles, barn animals, and personal shame is technically keeping you alive. You close your eyes. The blankets itch. The dog snores. The onion smell wraps all around you like a bad decision in a warm bath. And somehow, against all the odds, you start to drift. It's not comfort. It's not peace. But it's enough to sleep. You don't remember when she got there. One moment, it was just the usual mess of blankets and elbows and your cousin's questionable feet. And then the next, there was a weight near your thighs and the unmistakable sound of hooves adjusting themselves with a smug finality. The goat has joined you. No one moves to stop her. No one even speaks. You all just shift slightly to make a little space, the way you would for royalty or for a very insistent ghost. She settles in like she owns the place. And technically, she kind of does. Her milk gets more praise than any of your siblings. She once scared off a tax collector. And now she's here, in bed chewing something thoughtfully in the dark. It's possibly straw, possibly part of your curtain blanket. You consider asking her to stop, but her body heat has already begun to bleed into your legs like a slow, warm blessing. And the last thing you want to do is start a conversation that might lead to her leaving. She smells like hay and lanolin, and a series of decisions made in haste. It should be unpleasant. It's not. Compared to the onion blanket, It's practically perfume. Her fur is coarse and bristly, and somehow still softer than the sack you sleep on. You feel her breath on your knee, hot and damp and vaguely curious. And you pray silently that she doesn't decide your toes are edible. She's done worse. Around you, no one stirs. Either they've all accepted the situation, or they're asleep and blissfully unaware of the barn animal that's pressed against the bedding. Your sister twitches in her sleep and mutters something about gravy. The dog, who's sandwiched between you and the wall, lets out a low growl that turns into a snore before it can really commit to being angry. The goat flicks one ear in disapproval and just resumes chewing, her eyes half-lidded in the darkness, like she's been through 3 lifetimes, and this is still somehow not the worst one. You try to remember a time when goats weren't a regular part of your bedtime routine. It feels distant, fanciful, like a memory from someone else's life. You imagine city people with their fireplaces and their feather beds, and their complete and total lack of livestock in their sleeping quarters. The thought makes you laugh just under your breath. The goat snorts in agreement, or possibly indigestion. The fire crackles faintly from across the room. It's not enough to make a real difference, but just enough to whisper that it's trying. A thin thread of warmth curls lazily through the air. The goat shifts and presses closer, her side radiating heat like a clay oven that has opinions. Her flank is warm, solid, and stubborn. She doesn't apologize when she elbows you in the ribs. She doesn't have to. She's contributing. Your blanket bunches up around your shoulders, and you use one hand to tug it over both yourself and the goat. She allows it. This is the peak of trust. She yawns, a terrifying thing up close, full of molars and menace, and then she rests her jaw directly on your ankle. You don't dare move. It's an honor or possibly a threat. It's hard to tell with goats. You listen to the sound of her breathing, the occasional twitch of her legs as she dreams of whatever it is goats dream about. Grain bins maybe, or vengeance. And you begin to feel something that's almost like comfort. Not joy, not peace, but a strange, hushed sort of belonging. It's like the cold can't quite reach you, as long as this ridiculous animal is draped over your legs like a lumpy, living quilt. Someone coughs from the far side of the hut. The dog kicks in his sleep. The wind howls once against the wall, then just gives up. Inside, everything is quiet still. Just straw, breath, and the rhythmic click of goat teeth softly grinding against the night. You close your eyes. The goat stays. You wake up and just watch your breath drift out of your mouth like a tiny ghost trying to escape. It lingers there above your face for a moment, then vanishes, like it's realized it doesn't want to be here either. You shift under the pile of scratchy fabric and damp livestock, trying not to disturb the goat, who has now claimed your legs as her personal territory and may take any retaliation personally. The blanket, if you can even call it that, crackles slightly as it moves, dust puffing up into the cold air like it's exhaling too. The hut breathes all around you, not in some poetic, cozy way, but in the way that drafty walls and loose thatch inhale every single gust of wind and pass it directly along to your spine. The ceiling, which was dry at one point, now seems to weep at random intervals. Not from leaks exactly, although there are those, but more like it's sweating from the pressure of just continuing to exist. You hear a soft drip over near the hearth and you instinctively duck, just in case the hut is feeling generous this morning and wants to baptize you in icy roof water. Your breath comes out again, another little cloud. You try to catch it on the exhale this time, like a game. It buys you about 10 seconds of distraction from the way your toes have fused into one singular, icy sensation. You haven't felt your left foot in a full day. You're beginning to suspect it's either dead or just hibernating. The walls creak like they're trying to gossip. Every so often, a plank shifts with a low groan that makes you look up and wonder, just for a brief second, if this is the day it all finally comes down. No one talks about it out loud, but everyone has the same silent agreement. If the hut collapses, you will all simply lie there and accept it, possibly using the wreckage for extra insulation. The dog lifts his head, sneezes once into the room like he's blessing it, then flops back down with his nose tucked under your armpit. You don't take it personally. It's warmer there. You hope. The goat hasn't moved in over an hour. You think she might actually be asleep, or maybe just plotting. Either way, she's generating a small but valuable amount of heat that you're not about to question. Outside, the wind picks up. The door rattles. It's not fully closed and hasn't been for 2 years, but a well-placed bucket and a rock do their best to convince it otherwise. The sound it makes is somewhere between a moan and a complaint, like the hut itself is tired of holding in all of your collective despair. You glance toward the tiny window and see the edge of dawn trying to seep in. The frost on the inside of the glass has formed into these weird little patterns, like nature's idea of interior decorating. You reach out and touch it just to remind yourself that your fingers still exist. The cold bites you instantly, and your knuckle sticks to the glass for just half a second too long. You pull it back and whisper a small apology to your hand. Your mother stirs somewhere behind you, wrapped in 3 shawls and one very offended-looking cat. She mumbles something about a dream she had, one involving soup and King Edward. No one questions it. Dream logic belongs to the dreamer, and your mother has earned the right to romance royalty in her sleep, if it gets her through another night in a house made of regrets and poorly chosen materials. You lie back down, trying not to think about the puddle that's forming in the corner, or the ceiling beam that keeps making these little popping noises like it's rehearsing its grand exit. The hut groans again, one long breath out, and you realize it's not just the wind. It's your house, sighing right along with you. It's tired too. You shift and nestle deeper into the goat and pull the onion blanket a little bit tighter. The room smells like damp wool, burnt wood, and the stubborn will to not die. And still, impossibly, the hut holds. It's not so much a room as it is a collective decision, to just lie down in the same general direction. The walls lean in like they're trying to listen in on a secret. The hearth glows weakly in the corner, spitting out a flicker of warmth whenever it remembers to, and you're somewhere in the middle of what could generously be described as a heap. Your left leg is currently under your sister. Your right arm is under the dog. Someone's toes are wedged firmly between your shoulder blades, like they've mistaken your spine for a warming stone. It might be your brother. It might be your uncle. You don't ask anymore. The hens have taken up residence near the door, pressed into a corner beside the bucket you're not supposed to use unless it's a dire emergency. They peck at invisible things in their sleep. Occasionally, one of them clucks softly, like she's dreaming of better hay. Their feathers are surprisingly warm, though, and you've caught your mother more than once scooting just a bit closer under the guise of adjusting her shawl. Your uncle, the one no one openly acknowledges but everyone is acutely aware of, claims the spot nearest to the fire. He sleeps like he owns the floor, his limbs splayed out in 4 different directions, like a man who's never been cold a day in his life. He snores with absolute conviction. It's not just a sound, it's an event. At one point last night, you woke up convinced the roof was caving in, only to realize it was just Uncle Edric hitting a particularly aggressive inhale. You tried sleeping by the wall once, but the draft came through the cracks like it had a personal vendetta against you. Every time the wind howled outside, a chill crept along the floor and slid right under your shirt, whispering things like, "Give up." You're mostly frostbite anyway. So now you sleep closer to the middle, where there's body heat and less chance of waking up frozen to the wall. There's a thing under the table. Nobody knows what it is anymore. It moved once, about 6 days ago. Since then, it's been quiet. Your father says it's just the winter root basket with a coat thrown over it. Your sister swears she saw it blink. At this point, you've all just silently agreed to let it be. If it is alive, at least it's staying warm. And that's more than can be said for half the room. You sleep where you land. That's the rule. No one gets a real bed. Not really. There are piles of straw, some more respected than others, and a handful of personal territories that have been established by years of shifting elbows and passive-aggressive blanket tugs. If you're lucky, you get the spot near the dog. If you're unlucky, you get the corner where the roof drips, and you have to fashion a hat out of yesterday's breadcloth and your own sadness. The snoring happens in waves. It's like a symphony, one that's poorly timed but incredibly passionate. Your father starts it all off with a low, wheezing hum. Then your uncle joins in deeper, with these occasional dramatic pauses, as if he's completely forgotten how breathing works. The dog contributes a whimper here and there, and someone, probably your cousin, adds a nasal whistle that makes your eye twitch. You've all learned to take shifts, dozing in between the crescendos, like sailors in a very damp, very cramped ship that never actually leaves port. You roll over, dislodging a potato that someone apparently used as a pillow. It thuds softly against the floor, and no one moves. At this hour, nobody cares. As long as the hut doesn't collapse and the chickens don't try to roost in your hair again, you're willing to accept almost anything. Sleep comes eventually, not like a gift, but more like an overdue bill that's been slid under the door. You settle deeper into the pile, shifting your head onto a slightly less lumpy section of the curtain blanket. Someone mutters in their sleep. The fire cracks once quietly, like it's trying not to wake anyone. You close your eyes. This is how you sleep. All of you together, awkward, elbowed, and slightly off-key. But warm mostly. And that's enough to call it home. You wake up with that quiet, creeping urgency. The kind that begins in your lower belly and spreads outward like a dawning realization that your body has betrayed you. For a little while, you try to pretend it's not happening. You curl tighter under the onion-scented blanket, shift slightly to redistribute the pressure, and tell yourself that maybe, just maybe, you're imagining it. That the sensation is just a dream or a passing suggestion, like when your brother said he was moving out at 15. It is not. The need sharpens with each breath you take. You stare up at the ceiling, which stares back with a drip that's forming dangerously right above your left eye. Someone shifts beside you, mumbling something about soup. The goat exhales onto your toes. The dog is dead asleep and drooling against your arm. You are completely and utterly pinned by livestock and relatives. Each one is radiating the kind of body heat that would be absolutely delightful if you weren't currently debating whether just wetting yourself and freezing into a shame sculpture might be the easier option. The chamber pot is out of reach. Worse, it's full. You know this because someone used it after dinner and didn't have the decency to do the polite chamber pot shuffle that lets the next person know there's still some capacity left. You checked it earlier with one eye and immediately pretended you hadn't. It sloshed in a way that still haunts you. You could empty it technically, but that would involve walking outside, and the door is frozen shut again, because of course it is. Last night, your father had to kick it open with both feet and a prayer. That was before the snow blew in and buried the front step like it owed it money. You imagine trying to chip your way out in the dark, half-dressed, shivering violently with your only weapon being the lid of the pot and a vague sense of desperation. You try bargaining with yourself. Maybe you don't really need to go. Maybe if you sleep a little longer, the sensation will just recede into the background, like the sound of your uncle's wheezing or the smell of the goat's general attitude. You squeeze your eyes shut and you count backwards from 50, like that will somehow convince your bladder that this is not the time. By 37, your body is making threats. By 15, you're negotiating with saints. Saint quiet. Saint dignity. Saint please don't make me move. You consider peeing out the window, but the window's frozen shut too. And someone's head is directly under it. It's possibly your sister. It's possibly a sack of onions. The darkness makes no promises. You could try the corner, But that's where the chickens sleep, and you're not about to start that kind of feud. They remember things. They hold grudges. And you still need the eggs. So you do what any sensible person would do. You wait. You clench. You breathe slowly, shallowly, like you're trying not to anger a wild animal that lives inside your torso. Every creak of the hut feels louder now. Every rustle of hay is a temptation. The dog yawns and shifts his paw right onto your bladder. You just stare at him, blinking slowly, reconsidering your entire relationship. Finally, after what feels like hours, you reach the breaking point. You throw off the blankets with the urgency of someone evacuating a burning building, waking the goat, who is not pleased. You step on someone's hand and trip over the dog, who just grunts and immediately goes back to sleep like none of this is his problem. The pot is exactly where you left it. You approach it like it's a bomb. One false move, and you're a story people tell to make each other flinch. You lift the lid. You stare into the abyss. The abyss stares back, judgmental and disturbingly full. But you do it. You go. You win. You don't cry, but it's a close call. Afterward, you stumble back to your pile of shared warmth and questionable blankets. The dog growls as you rearrange yourself. The goat sighs dramatically and puts a hoof on your thigh. The air is cold. The hut creaks. You've survived the night's greatest challenge. Barely. You're wearing everything you own. Not metaphorically, I mean literally. Every single garment you've ever been handed, inherited, stolen from a cousin, or stitched together out of an old sack, is currently on your body. It's all layered with the desperation of someone who's lost all their shame and most of their circulation. You're reasonably sure that some of these clothes weren't even designed for humans. One sleeve feels like it belongs to a tunic. The other might be from a curtain. You're not asking questions anymore. Your Pentecost shirt, the good one, with the buttons that almost match and the collar that makes you feel like royalty in a very itchy way, is now buried under two cloaks and an apron that still smells like turnips. You didn't want to wear it. It felt like giving up on hope, on the idea that spring will ever actually arrive, and that someday, just maybe, you'll attend a church service without your kneecaps trembling. But the cold has stripped you of both your dignity and your fashion sense. Warmth now outranks holiness. And yet you're still cold. You lie under the usual pile of blankets, if pile is a fair word for one sack, one curtain, and a wet dog, and you feel the chill deep in your bones like a bad prophecy. It doesn't matter that your arms can barely bend anymore, or that your clothes rustle when you shift like a haystack that's learning to walk. The cold still finds you. It whispers through the seams. It slides between the buttons. It coils around your ankles like a bored cat with a grudge. Your toes are the worst part. You're no longer convinced they're even a part of you. They've become these little frozen artifacts, relics of a warmer life you might have had once. You press them against the goat's side. As she moves, You curse quietly into the night, and you try again. In a moment of inspired madness, or maybe divine intervention, you remember something your grandmother once said about cabbage leaves keeping warmth in. Or maybe it was about warding off demons. Either way, the logic tracks. You peel 2 half-frozen leaves from the vegetable pile in the corner, wrap your feet like they're leftovers, and you whisper an apology to the cabbage. It works barely, but barely is enough. When your other option is frostbite and crying, you don't mean to cry. It just happens. Not a sobbing, dramatic cry, but a slow, leaky kind of sadness that slides down your cheeks and into your collar. The kind of cry that's less about emotions and more about your body just saying, "This is it. This is all we can offer you." You let the tears fall. They warm your face for half a second before turning cold and soaking into your Pentecost shirt, which now smells faintly of boiled greens and regret. The cabbage doesn't judge you. It just stays wrapped around your toes like a quiet friend who knows you're at your limit. You wonder if this counts as communion. Probably not, but it feels close. Around you, the room breathes with snores and snorts, and the occasional chicken foot scratching at the dirt. The dog mutters something in his sleep. The fire sighs. Your uncle lets out a whistle snore that somehow harmonizes with the wind outside. No one stirs. No one knows that you've reached a new level of cold-induced philosophy, lying here in 6 layers of peasant chic with produce tied to your extremities. You shift under the blankets and feel the edge of your Pentecost collar stab you in the neck. The goat exhales and shifts, her hoof resting squarely on your shin like she's claiming the territory. You let her. It's warmer that way. You close your eyes, wrapped in fabric and doubt. The faint scent of cabbage is rising around you like incense. The fire flickers once. You pretend it's a blessing. You fall asleep, dressed for battle, smelling like soup and dreaming of warmth. It starts with a quiet shuffle, a slow, sneaky slide of bodies inching closer and closer together in the dark. Each person pretending it's not happening, that they're perfectly content exactly where they are. But the truth is, everyone's cold. Everyone wants the center, the warm zone, the sacred ground where heat collects like treasure and bodies become reluctant furnaces. And tonight, just like every other night, it's war. You've wedged yourself between your cousin and your sister, both of whom have bones made of sharp angles and sleep with the grace of collapsing furniture. The cousin mutters in his sleep, and he keeps pulling the blanket toward his chin like it actually belongs to him. Your sister's elbow is digging into your ribs. You retaliate with a casual knee to her thigh. She hisses through her teeth, but she doesn't move. In the middle of the pile, immovable and as smug as a rock that's been blessed by the sun, is your grandmother. She's 87 years old, has 3 working teeth, and snores like a church bell falling down a well. But she is warm. She is so warm that it radiates outward like a beacon. And she knows it. That's why she guards her position like a dragon hoarding embers. She got there first, and somehow she always gets there first, and now she lies sprawled across the best straw, a contented grunt escaping her every few breaths. Her shawl is wrapped around her like a personal fort. Her feet are tucked safely beneath the dog for extra insulation. She has pulled the goat halfway over her hip like a heat-seeking blanket that has hooves. You've tried negotiating before. You once offered her a turnip and a spot near the fire if she just trade positions for one night. She didn't even answer, just laughed and told you stories of when the winters were colder and the houses were smaller and people slept outside with wolves for warmth. You didn't believe her, but you respected the hustle. If someone grunts, if someone else shoves, a small ripple of movement jolts the pile, and suddenly there's an opening near the middle. It's chaos. Your brother lunges for it like a soldier, leaping onto a battlefield. Your aunt screeches. The dog growls. A fist connects with someone's shoulder, possibly yours, and the whole pile rearranges itself with the grace and fury of a barnyard brawl that's done in total silence. Your grandmother doesn't move, not a single inch. She just tightens her grip on the goat and mutters something that sounds suspiciously like, "Over my dead body." Elbows fly, toes kick. The curtain blanket is now halfway off the pile, dragged by the dog in protest. Your cousin's head ends up under your armpit. Someone's breath is directly in your face and smells like cabbage in defiance. You lurch forward in a last-ditch effort to get closer to the warmth, only to be blocked by a very determined chicken and your grandmother's bony knee. You fall back defeated. It's not about comfort anymore. It's not even about sleep. It's about not letting your siblings win. It's about pride and survival and the simple, primal knowledge that whoever controls the center controls the night. The cold bites harder near the edges. The air is sharper there. Your fingers curl in on themselves like they're trying to just disappear. Your grandmother sighs contentedly. The goat shifts and settles in with her like a traitor. You close your eyes and you imagine summer. You imagine heat without conflict. You imagine having a bed all to yourself. Then your cousin snores directly into your ear, and the dream dies a quiet death. This is just the way of things. In the huddle, there is no justice. There is only strategy. And your grandmother always wins. You wake up to a sound that's somewhere between a cough and a prayer. It's your father, rising like an ancient tree from the tangle of sleeping bodies, shaking the straw from his shoulders and muttering curses at his own knees. His breath fogs in front of him like a ghost that's trying to offer advice. You pretend to still be asleep. Everyone does, because whoever moves first owns the fire. And that means crawling out from under the pitiful warmth of bodies and rags and facing the pre-dawn freeze head-on, naked, exposed, and judged by the frost itself. But he's already moving. He steps over your cousin, trips on the dog, swats away a chicken, then kneels down at the hearth, grumbling low and steady like he's speaking to the spirits of logs past. The fire, or what's left of it, is just a sullen orange glow, hiding under a blanket of gray ash. It doesn't care about your survival. It's done enough. It wants to die in peace. Your father pokes at it with the iron rod, the one that's so bent, it's now more of a suggestion than an actual tool. A spark jumps. Everyone in the room hears it and collectively pretends not to care, though half the eyes in the room are already open. You watch him feed it little bark chips, some dried moss, the last of the straw from the goat's bedding. Sorry, goat. And finally, the sacred corner of last year's calendar. December 17th. Gone in a flash of purpose and faint regret. The goat groans, but she says nothing. She understands sacrifice. The fire catches slowly, as if it's reconsidering its decision. Your father leans in close and breathes on it like he's trying to revive an old friend who owes him money. You catch the words he's muttering, a strange mixture of threats, encouragement, and what might be a hymn. It's unclear, but the flame stirs. It flutters, then it flares. Heat. Not much, but enough. It dances up and out with a crackle that might as well be angels singing. You sit up, pretending it's casual, like you weren't desperately hopping to feel your toes again. Others do the same. The dog makes a big show of stretching. Your brother coughs meaningfully and sidles closer. The goat eyes the hearth like she's about to sue for damages. The warmth spreads outward in slow pulses, like ripples in a frozen pond. You scoot forward, your hands out, sleeves rolled back to expose the pink tips of your fingers that had nearly forgotten what blood feels like. The fire sees them and it licks at the air, generous now, suddenly magnanimous, like it's finally remembered its role in your collective survival. You whisper to it under your breath. A thank you, a plea, a warning. You'll give it more if it asks. Anything. Old cloth split spoons, your cousin's wooden comb. He'll never miss it. Your grandmother arrives at the hearth with a reverence you normally reserve for saints and warm porridge. She crouches low, her palms wide, her eyes closed. She says nothing, but everyone knows she's communing with it. You don't question it. She has made offerings to the fire in winters past, and she carries the authority of someone who has watched it die and brought it back with a single splinter and a glare. You add a few more sticks, ones you stole from the wood pile the day before and hid behind the bucket. You are a fire priest now, a bringer of warmth. The others acknowledge you with small nods as they gather in the growing glow. It is not love, it is survival, but for a moment they look at you like you actually matter. Your father sits back, satisfied. The fire dances higher, casting golden light on the walls, the sleeping sacks, the patched elbows and frost-bitten feet of your people. You can feel your toes again. You can move your fingers without wincing. The goat shifts closer and offers no protest when you lean against her. The room changes. It's still cold, yes, but it's no longer cruel. You've done it. You've made it through another night. And for a little while, the fire loves you back. The smoke isn't pleasant. It slithers up from the fire with the confidence of something that has no intention of asking for permission, curling into your nose, your eyes, your throat, like it pays rent here. It's the kind of smoke that makes you blink and cough and question if warmth is really worth all this. But it is. Oh, it absolutely is. Because this smoke, for all its crimes, comes with heat. And that makes it family now. You hang your socks over the fire on a stick, so crooked it might have once been a question mark. They drip faintly. The smell is somewhere between damp wool and betrayal. You don't remember how your socks got wet in the first place, but they always are, like they've developed their own personal weather system. Now they sizzle as they steam, curling up at the toes like they're trying to escape their fate. One of them hisses louder than you expected, and everyone flinches. The goat sneezes. The fire pops. Someone mutters a blessing, just in case. Still, the air is changing. There's warmth now. The bitter edge of the night has finally dulled. The dog stretches out near the hearth, his tongue lolling, as if he too is beginning to believe in things again. Your little brother clutches a piece of bread that's more crumb than crust, and your mother hums something low and tuneless as she kneads the morning's dough with a rhythm that feels ancient and oddly reassuring. You glance around and realize that no one looks quite as angry today. The arguments have taken a temporary break. The usual bickering about who stole whose potato or who farted under the blanket last night has quieted down. It's not gone, never gone, but it has softened. The fire has done that. Warmth makes people generous, or at least less inclined to violence. Your uncle, the one who mostly speaks in yawns and vague insults, actually cracks a smile. It's small and it's shaped like he hasn't used those muscles in a few years, but it's there. He holds his hands near the fire and lets out a sigh that sounds like a barn door finally giving up and swinging open. Your grandmother, eternal and immovable, sits with the goat draped across her lap like a particularly smug shawl. She peels a turnip slowly, ceremonially, and she nods along to the humming. You flip your socks. They've gone crispy at the edges, which you convince yourself is an improvement. Your toes twitch in anticipation. There's something almost holy about the thought of dry socks. Not clean ones. That's a luxury from another universe entirely. But dry is enough to make a person believe they'll live to see another season. The smoke thickens for a moment, and someone opens the door just a crack to let some of it out. A blast of frigid air punches into the room like winter's way of reminding you it's still in charge. The fire stutters. You all shiver. The door is slammed shut immediately and resecured with a bucket, a rock, and what might be a shoe. The lesson is clear. No one tests the outside twice. Your socks are steaming now. You prod them gingerly and decide they've reached the technically wearable stage. You pull them on. They are stiff, they are uneven, and they smell like roasted misery, but they are warm. You wiggle your toes, and you can feel actual sensation. It's intoxicating. There's more humming now. Your cousin joins in badly. Someone adds a drum beat on the side of a wooden bowl. It's not music exactly, but it's close enough to pretend. Spirits lift. The room doesn't feel like a punishment anymore. It feels like survival, but with flair. You lean back against the wall, your socked feet pointed toward the fire, your eyes still watery from the smoke. The roof isn't leaking today. The goat hasn't tried to bite anyone in hours. The fire is alive. The bread is baking. And for the first time in a while, you think you might just make it through the week. You rise from the straw like a curse that's being broken. Slowly, with much creaking and the faint protest of muscles that clearly signed a different contract than the rest of you. Your spine makes a sound that could probably summon spirits. Your knees threaten to unionize. Your breath fogs in front of you like you're exhaling secrets that are just too heavy to keep. The straw clings to your back, to your hair, to your dignity. It's in places you don't even remember exposing to straw. The room is dim and heavy with the smell of dampness and wool, and a kind of sadness that settles into the corners like an elderly cat. Someone has clearly eaten something pickled in the night, and the evidence has merged with the smoky haze that's still hanging in the air. Your blanket, a term you use generously, is now crumpled halfway across the room, likely kicked in the night during one of the many territorial disputes over body heat. You just stare at it like it betrayed you. It stares back. The goat is awake. She stares at you with the same expression she always wears, somewhere between boredom and accusation. Her breath mists just like yours, except her smells faintly of something herbal and judgmental. You nod politely. She does not return the gesture. Your grandmother is already moving. She's small, but she is eternal, like the moon or lice. She's stoking the fire, muttering to herself and poking at the embers like they've disappointed her personally. The pot over the hearth burps once, a warning that breakfast will be both hot and conceptually disappointing. It's probably turnip-based, possibly featuring something that's been rehydrated. No one asks. You pull on your socks, which are still warm from the night before, though they now feel oddly crispy, like a piece of toast that's reconsidering its career choices. Your shirt smells of smoke and body and effort. Your trousers sag with the resignation of clothing that's been through things. You tighten the string and you pretend that it helps. The fog in your head just refuses to lift. You're not tired exactly, just murky. Like your thoughts have been soaking in cold dishwater all night long. You shuffle toward the corner where a cracked basin holds the kind of water that remembers being ice. You splash it on your face. Time freezes. So do your eyebrows. You inhale sharply and you rediscover your sinuses. The others start to stir. Your siblings are making the sounds of people waking up from dreams that were probably not dreams at all. Just shuffled fragments of yesterday repeated with slightly different goats. Someone farts. The dog sneezes. The cycle of life continues. You glance over at the window. The light hasn't quite reached it yet, but the shape of the sun is trying. It's weak, as if it's unsure it's even worth the trouble today. You understand. But it counts. Even the smallest promise of light means the world didn't actually end in the night. Not completely. Your father grunts himself awake, rubbing his face like it owes him something. He nods at you, a morning ritual that says both, "Good job not dying," and "Go do more chores." You nod back. It's a language of few words and even fewer expectations. Breakfast is served. It's warm. It doesn't taste like hope, but it also doesn't taste like dirt. And that's progress. You eat it gratefully, your knees tucked up to your chest, trying to keep the heat from your bowl close to your nose. And despite the cold, despite the smoke, despite the goat watching you like you owe her money, you're here. You're upright. You are, by all peasant metrics, thriving. You made it through the night. You're still foggy, you're still aching, you're still coated in a thin layer of doubt and straw, but you're alive. Mostly. You sit near the fire, your hands curled in on themselves like they're trying to forget they ever existed. Your mittens, if you can still call them that, hang limply off one wrist, damp with a mystery moisture you've learned not to question anymore. One is gone entirely, probably stolen in the night by your brother or swallowed whole by the straw mattress. The remaining mitten has a hole exactly where your thumb wants not to be frostbitten. It offers the illusion of comfort, like a compliment from someone who doesn't even know your name. You try blowing warm air into your hands, but the effort only makes you dizzy. Your fingers remain stubbornly purple, buzzing with the kind of cold that makes you feel nostalgic for old injuries. Your breath fogs around them, uselessly. You rub them on your thighs, against the dog's side, even under your arms. Nothing works. Then your eyes land on the goat. She's sitting by the fire with the unbothered poise of someone who knows she will outlive all of you. Her flank steams gently, radiating heat like a divine punishment for anyone who's too proud to ask. You stare at her. She stares back. There is a moment, silent, intense, where you consider what needs to be done. You inch closer. She doesn't move. You lift your hands slowly, like you're approaching a nervous god. She doesn't flinch. Her eyes narrow, but not with a threat, with calculation. The pact is made. You slide your hands underneath her belly with the apologetic air of someone who's violating a sacred social contract. The warmth is immediate. It's immediate and it's magnificent. It seeps through your palms and up your arms, sinking into your very bones like a whispered apology from the universe. You stifle a moan and catch your breath in your throat, afraid to break the moment. She shifts slightly, making space as if to say, "Fine, but don't get cocky about it." You silently dub her saint Warm Bottom, patron saint of the desperate and the digitless. The others notice. Of course they do. Your sister gives you a look that's equal parts disgust and envy. Your cousin raises an eyebrow and mutters something about dignity, but none of them move. None of them dare, because the goat has chosen you, at least for now, and because they're all still pretending that the fire is enough. You stay like that for longer than anyone could possibly call normal. One hand, then the other. You alternate them like you're basting them back to life. Occasionally she shifts or snorts or grumbles deep in her throat, but she doesn't push you away. You whisper your thanks into her side. Quiet promises of extra scraps and fewer complaints. At one point, your grandmother passes behind you and grunts in approval. Not a full sentence, just a sound that roughly translates to smart or possibly weakling. In her dialect, they're the same thing. Eventually, you have to move. The goat gives a final snort that you take as a benediction. You pull your hands back, flexing your fingers like someone waking from a deep and forgiving sleep. They tingle now. You can almost feel them again. One still doesn't fully bend, but you decide that's a problem for future you. You sit back, tuck your arms into your shirt, and stare into the fire like someone who's just glimpsed the edge of death and found warmth in a very unexpected place. The room is still cold. The morning is still hard. Your mitten is still missing, probably forever. But your hands are warm. And the goat is watching you like she might let you do it again. The tension is thick enough to butter your bread with. Not that you have butter or bread, but if you did, it would spread easily over the cold silence that's currently simmering inside the hut. The fire has gone sullen again, shrinking into itself like it's afraid of being noticed. It's throwing off about as much heat as a lukewarm insult, and nobody is moving. You sit near the hearth, your legs pulled in tight, pretending to poke at the embers with a stick that does absolutely nothing. Everyone else is pretending they aren't cold. Your mother is sewing something that doesn't need sewing. Your brother is staring intently at the ceiling, as if he's contemplating the metaphysical significance of smoke stains. Your uncle is snoring, but dramatically, like each exhale is a protest. The goat sneezes, and even that carries a tone of judgment. No one wants to say it. No one wants to admit the fire needs more wood. Because wood, as everyone knows, lives outside in the cold. And chopping it requires effort and emotion and an unfortunate proximity to the wind that's been personally harassing your family for generations. And so you all just sit there, each of you slowly freezing into the exact position you woke up in, your limbs stiffening, your expression souring. Then it begins. The cough. Sharp, meaningful, timed perfectly between lulls in a conversation that doesn't exist because no one's been speaking for 10 minutes. Another cough answers it. This one more theatrical, with a hint of a wheeze. Someone shifts in their blanket pile. Your grandmother sighs loudly. Her eyes close like she's praying for deliverance, or maybe death, whichever comes with firewood. Your mother rubs her hands together with the long-suffering air of someone who could have married that man from the village with a tiled roof and a working fireplace, but instead chose passion and chickens. Still no one moves. You attempt the stick poke again. Nothing catches. Nothing stirs. The fire gives you a look if glowing coals could give looks. That says it knows exactly what you are, a coward. Then your father snaps. He slams down his wooden spoon, rattling the pot and everyone's moral superiority. He stands up, slow and purposeful, wrapping his coat around him like a martyr preparing for sainthood. He doesn't speak, but he doesn't have to. His boots thud against the floor like punctuation marks. By the time he reaches the door, he's muttering, and not quietly. It's loud enough for the hut to hear. Loud enough for the saints to take notes. Lazy children. No respect. Freezing to death in my own home, while everyone just watches like pigs at a play. He yanks the door open. The wind punches through the room like it's owed something. Everyone hisses in unison, clutching their blankets tighter as if the cold is contagious, and he's just sneezed in all their faces. The door slams shut behind him. Silence falls again. The goat shifts back into the warmest spot, completely undisturbed. Your sister stares into the fire like maybe if she wishes hard enough, it'll become a bonfire out of pure guilt. Your cousin starts coughing again. No one buys it. Then outside, the rhythmic thud of an axe against wood begins. Sharp, steady, full of righteous fury. You all sit a little straighter. The fire crackles in anticipation, smelling opportunity. Your grandmother gives a curt nod as if to say, as it should be. The sound continues, faster now, more dramatic. He's definitely showing off. It's the kind of chopping that splits log and old resentments right in half. He's muttering louder between swings now. Something about how no one appreciates how their toes are still attached to their feet. How fire doesn't feed itself. How he should have just let the goat raise you all. By the time he storms back in, his cheeks flushed and his arms full of glorious, splittable salvation, the fire is practically giggling. You help him load the logs and he just grunts. It's not thanks. It's just acknowledgement. A truce has been reached. At least until the next round of passive-aggressive warfare begins. The fire roars back to life. And with it, so do you. The pot has been bubbling since before anyone even admitted they were hungry. It sits there proudly, suspended above the fire like a cauldron of intentions, neither kind nor cruel, just inevitable. You've been watching it for an hour, the way a starving man might eye a soggy piece of bread that's been left out in the rain. Occasionally, someone stirs it with a spoon so long it could double as a jousting lance. The contents slosh with all the enthusiasm of old bathwater, and with about the same clarity. Still, you're invested. It smells like heat. That's all it really takes. It doesn't smell good, not in the culinary sense, but it smells warm, and your body is far too cold to be picky. Steam curls up into the air, clinging to the low ceiling like it's trying to escape. You let it hit your face, and you pretend it's doing something medicinal. It stings your nose, and it leaves a film over your upper lip that you tell yourself is healing vapors, and not just evaporated turnip juice. Someone ladles out the first bowl. It's mostly broth, a vague beige color with floating shards of something fibrous, possibly cabbage, possibly wood, possibly an old mitten that was boiled for flavor. Your sister holds the bowl like it's made of solid gold, cradling it against her chest and whispering to it like she's adopted it. You get the next one. The ladle dips down and hits something solid. There's a moment of reverence, a pause. The bowl tilts and out slides a turnip the size of your palm, looking startled to even be here. It lands with a soft plop in your soup. Then comes a shard of onion, a single lentil, and a piece of what might be bone, might be a root, or might be the reason it tastes vaguely metallic. You sit down with your prize and you just stare at it. It stares back. You spoon the broth carefully, your lips parting like it's a first kiss. The heat hits you instantly, scalding your tongue and your pride. You hiss, you slurp, and you swallow all at once, achieving a perfect harmony of pain, satisfaction, and surrender. It doesn't taste like food. It tastes like effort. It tastes like the memory of a flavor that someone once described to the pot and just hoped it would interpret correctly. But it's hot, and that alone makes it holy. You try the turnip. It yields under your spoon with the texture of cooked boot leather, but it carries a sweetness you weren't prepared for. A melancholy sweetness, the kind that whispers of better gardens, better harvests, better days. You chew it slowly, like you're honoring someone's legacy. Then you hit the bone. You're not sure what animal it came from. Nobody is. The goat is still here, so that narrows it down slightly. You poke it around the bowl like it might confess its origins. It doesn't. You try to nibble on a corner. It tastes like regret and minerals. You put it back and you sip more broth, pretending that counts as second helpings. The others are eating in silence, a kind of communal trance. The hut fills with slurps and the occasional satisfied groan. No one speaks, not because they can't, but because the soup demands your full and undivided attention. It's not delicious. It's not nourishing. But it's hot, and it reminds you that you're alive, which in this moment is more than enough. You drain the last of your bowl, and you set it down. The goat sniffs at it, judges your life choices, and turns away. You think you see her roll her eyes. Fair enough. The ladle clangs against the side of the pot like a church bell for the desperate. Someone stirs. The soup has settled into layers now. Smoke on top, disappointment in the middle, and mystery at the bottom. The steam, though the steam is magnificent. You've taken to sitting just slightly closer than is probably safe, letting the tendrils of heat touch your face like the ghost of affection. It's the only kind you've had in days. You lean in a little too far, and just like that, you are reborn. Your face erupts in a dewy sheen, with little droplets clinging to your eyebrows, your nose, your upper lip, places that have only known frostbite and family judgment until now. The sudden heat is overwhelming, beautiful, possibly hallucinogenic. It seeps into your cheeks, it melts the stiffness from your jaw, and it drips into your brain like whispered promises of a better life. You breathe it in and you immediately cough, but even that feels luxurious. For 5 seconds, you know true joy. It's fleeting. The steam fades. Your skin begins to chill again, and with it, your hope. But those 5 seconds are yours. You hold them close, like a stolen loaf of bread or a fond childhood memory that wasn't technically yours, but you've decided to adopt anyway. Your mother doesn't notice. She's still trying to sew a sock into a sleeve for reasons no one's had the courage to ask about. Your siblings are arguing about whether a burnt onion still counts as a vegetable. The goat has stolen someone's scarf and has wrapped it around her neck like a bold-fashioned statement. You cry. Not dramatically, just a quiet internal leak. The kind of tear that doesn't ask for sympathy, just escape. It slides down your cheek, mingles with the condensation from the steam, and just disappears. No one notices. You're not even sure if it really happened, or if your pores are just malfunctioning. You shift slightly, pretending it's just to get more comfortable. But really, you're angling your face again. You chase the steam like a cat hunting sunbeams, nose first into the rising vapor. The pot spits at you. You don't care. You'd take a burn. You'd welcome it. You start to understand why the idea of eternal fire sounded so good to so many people. If the afterlife has this kind of heat, you're willing to sin creatively to get there. The fire pops. Someone yelps. A spark hits the floor and is quickly stomped out with a boot and a curse. For a moment, there's chaos. Blankets are flung. The goat bleats dramatically. Someone throws a ladle for no reason whatsoever. But then it all settles again into the gentle quiet of shared suffering. You lick your lips. They taste like smoke and salt, and possibly tears. You reach toward the pot, thinking of steam and warmth and the possibility of a second helping, even if it's just broth and boiled betrayal. But the pot is empty. Someone scraped the bottom clean when you weren't looking. You stare into it, your heart hollowing out. There's a little bit of onion skin clinging to the rim, just taunting you. The steam is already fatting. You try to breathe it in before it's gone, like a final blessing from a god who's already packed up and moved on to a warmer parish. You sit back slowly, your skin cooling, your eyes dry again. You can still feel the warmth ghosting over your face, a phantom kindness. Steam is a luxury now, and you're not sure if you're mourning the soup, or the warmth, or just the realization that you've started to envy the goat. You drop into sleep like you've been punched in the soul. It's not graceful, not the kind of slumber that poets write about with lavender-scented metaphors and angelic sighs. No, this is a tactical surrender. You don't sleep on the straw mattress so much as you fall into it, entangled in its embrace like a prisoner who's been shackled by hay and shame. Your arms fold up weird. One leg dangles off the edge. A chicken is uncomfortably near your face. None of this is optimal, but you are tired. Not the kind of tired that can be solved with a quick nap or a brisk walk, or whatever it is monks do for self-care. This is the kind of tired that lives deep in your bones, right behind your eyes, wrapped around your spine like a wet rope. So you just collapse, your boots still on, your blanket mostly off, your body curled in whatever formation doesn't immediately jab you with splinters or siblings. And still, sleep does not come kindly. First, there's the fire. It pops loudly, like it has some unresolved trauma to work through. You jerk awake, certain that someone's being murdered. No, it's just a log. A petty, dramatic log with timing as bad as your uncle's storytelling. Then there's the wind. It howls like it's been rejected from the afterlife, and now it just haunts the outside of your hut as revenge. It squeezes through the cracks in the wall, slinking in like a thief with icy fingers. You roll over. It follows you. You bury your face in a sack that once held barley and now smells vaguely like someone else's dreams. It doesn't help. You start muttering curses that are half remembered from your grandmother, invoking saints you're pretty sure were completely fictional. Eventually, sleep drags you under. But even in unconsciousness, peace is rationed. You dream of summer, the kind of summer with actual sun, and bees, and fruit that doesn't come pickled in some kind of mystery brine. In the dream, you're barefoot and you're warm, and you're full of bread that didn't come with a side of judgment. A breeze touches your face like a lover. Then the breeze turns. It gets colder. It starts to whistle. You wake up to a hole in the wall, whimpering cold directly onto your neck. You sit up disoriented. There's straw in your mouth. Something has pooped near your elbow. You don't look. You won't look. You just lie back down and start over. This time, you wedge yourself between two siblings for insulation. One of them kicks in his sleep. The other snores like a dying accordion. You shift, then you shift again. Then you just accept that comfort is a myth that was created by the church to sell more candles. You fall asleep with one arm trapped under your body, one foot under the goat, and your face pressed against the wooden slats of the wall, which are somehow even colder than it is outside. In your dream this time, you're in a battle, a real one. Spears, horses shouting. You wake up mid-mutter, whispering the name of your cousin like he's betrayed you. He might have. It's unclear. Your mouth is dry. Your socks are wet. Your soul is wrinkled. But you're still breathing. And in this hut in this winter, that's practically a luxury suite. The air inside the hut is somewhere between wood smoke and damp wool, with just a hint of mystery illness. You wake up to the sound of coughing, which is completely normal now. And it's not just one cough either. It's a symphony of them. Dry hacks, chesty barks, polite little throat clears that spiral into something far more dramatic. The hut isn't quiet. It never is. But the night has carved it down to just the essentials. Breathing, creaking beams, and a cough every 7 seconds. At first, it was annoying. That was days ago, or maybe weeks. Time has no shape anymore, just meal markers and sleep cycles. But now the coughing is oddly reassuring. It's predictable. It's comforting, in the same way the goat's smell is comforting. It's not pleasant, just known. When someone coughs, you do a quick roll call in your mind. That one's Ma, short and sharp, like she's trying not to disturb anyone while failing entirely. That wheezy one with the theatrical throat rattle is your uncle. His cough could win awards. He somehow makes it sound like a political statement. And that faint, scratchy one over in the corner is the baby, which is alarming. But the baby coughs with the commitment of someone twice her age, so you just pretend it's fine. You don't cough yet. Not out loud. You've developed a kind of pride around it, as if your silence will somehow protect you from whatever strange, damp plague is clearly circulating through the straw and the ceiling beams. You breathe shallowly and with purpose, like a monk meditating in an ice bath. If you can just not inhale too deeply, you won't catch anything. Logic. The fire sputters in the hearth. You can see the smoke curling lazily around the ceiling, gathering like gossip, thick enough that you could draw shapes in it. The hut's only window is coated in a fine layer of frozen breath, and someone has scratched a crude face into it, a lopsided smile with accusing eyes. You're pretty sure it was your brother. Or the goat. Either way, it watches you. Another cough rattles through the room. This one is moist and philosophical. You blink up at the ceiling, and you listen to it echo slightly, bouncing off the pots and the wooden beams like it's trying to find its place in the world. You shift under your blanket, which is really more of a cloth suggestion, and you accidentally elbow your sister. She coughs in retaliation. It's not a real one, just enough to remind you that you are not alone. No one is ever alone here. There is always a cough, or a foot, or a snore, or the ghost of last night's turnip stew to keep you company. In the dark, people start coughing in patterns. You can hear them communicating across the hut. A 3-cough volley from the back corner gets a 2-cough response from near the door. You imagine they're exchanging pleasantries, or maybe secrets. The goat coughs once pointedly, and everyone pauses for just a second. It's impossible to tell if she's actually caught something or if she's just mocking you. You don't question her anymore. Your uncle shifts loudly and releases another one of his signature wheeze coughs, the kind that ends with a noise like someone stepping on a flute. He always follows it with a grunt, as if he's blaming the air itself for challenging him. Then silence. Just for a moment. Long enough for everyone to collectively wonder if he's finally died this time. Then another cough, half-hearted and triumphant. Is still alive. You press your fingers to your lips, not in fear, but just to see if they're still warm. Barely. The fire needs feeding, but no one moves. You're all just waiting it out, hoping someone else will break first. The coughs continue. Someone groans in the corner, then starts a raspy tune, half lullaby, half incantation, before giving up halfway through the first verse. Energy is scarce. You cough once. You don't mean to. It just slips out like a confession. Immediate silence follows. The room collectively turns toward your general direction, with a level of interest that's normally reserved for bare sightings or surprise bread. You clear your throat in a way that suggests it was just dust, not doom. Everyone silently accepts this. No one says a word, but you are one of them now. The coughers. It doesn't even feel that bad. You breathe in, shallow and soft, and you try to sleep. Around you, the sound continues, a staggered rhythm of human survival. You don't need to speak. The hut is already full of language. Coughs, groans, wheezes, Morse code for the ill-equipped. You close your eyes and you let it all wash over you, like a lullaby made of lungs. The chicken is asleep again. Deeply, absolutely, offensively asleep. She's nestled down by your feet like a little feathered queen, her wings tucked in, her head under, radiating the kind of serene warmth that's usually reserved for saints and bakery ovens. Her body heat leaks up through the rag you call a blanket, reminding you of everything you are not, comfortable, relaxed, or blissfully unaware of your immediate surroundings. You, in contrast, are awake again. You've shifted 14 times. You've tried lying flat, curling up, uncurling, lying diagonally, and at one point you even attempted the fetal position, but you were thwarted by an elbow belonging to someone you're not even sure is family. The straw pokes your back in new and interesting ways. Your leg has gone completely numb, which you tell yourself is just efficient hibernation. The wind howls outside like it's angry you're not out there with it. And the chicken, she snores. Not loudly, but it's there. A soft little snuffle that drifts up like a form of judgment. You didn't even know chickens could snore. You wonder if she dreams, probably of warmer places, cleaner nests, and a time before she was conscripted into your nightly human pile. Her feathers puff up slightly with each little breath. And when you shift to find a slightly less miserable patch of blanket, she shifts too, but closer. You don't know whether to thank her or to apologize. Someone mutters in their sleep. Someone else lets out a fart so theatrical it should have had a curtain call. No one moves. The fire has gone sullen again. Just a few dim coals sulking in the ashes, not even bothering to contribute. The cold creeps back in, wrapping itself around your toes like a moist accusation. You consider waking the chicken and asking her how she does it, how she finds such peace in this nest of human desperation and failed insulation. But you don't, because there is a hierarchy here, and the chicken is now above you. You remember when she first started sleeping indoors. It was supposed to be temporary. A frost had rolled in early, and Ma said it would be cruel to leave the animals out. So in came the chicken. One night, maybe two. That was the plan. That was 2 fortnights and a go. Now she has a spot. It's not assigned exactly, but everyone knows it's hers. Last night you got a little too close and she pecked your shin. Not hard, just enough to let you know that boundaries exist. She shifts again and emits a sound that's so content, so smug, you briefly consider trading souls with her. She's earned this, you think. She lays eggs. She eats bugs. She minds her own business, and she doesn't complain when someone uses her wing as a foot warmer. You haven't even contributed firewood in 2 days. You're barely pulling your own weight. Another gust of wind whistles through the wall, making the window shutter rattle like bones. The chicken does not flinch. Her peace is invincible. You sigh and you pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders. It smells like cabbage and damp dog. The chicken smells like straw and sun-warmed hay, and possibly a touch of superiority. Someone rolls over behind you and knees you in the spine. You bite back a groan, not wanting to wake the sleeping poultry royalty. Your arm is asleep now, which is the only part of you that is. You just stare into the darkness and try to count the things you're grateful for. The list is short, and it's mostly chicken-shaped. Eventually, exhaustion just folds you in half and lets you drift, uneasily, but it's enough. You float somewhere between sleep and surrender, feeling the occasional little twitch from the bird at your feet. It's oddly comforting, like sharing a bed with someone who knows all your worst traits, but still doesn't leave. When dawn stabs a pale beam through the shutters, it lands directly on your face. The chicken doesn't move. She'll rise when she's ready. You, however, blink yourself into a sitting position, your joints cracking like ice in a thaw. You look down at her. She opens one eye, a long, slow blink. Regal. You bow your head slightly in acknowledgement. She closes her eye again and resumes her reign. Long live the chicken. The frost is back. Not outside where it belongs, but inside. It's inside on your side of the window, like an uninvited guest who brought no gifts and then stole all the warmth. You stare at it for a moment, bleary-eyed and barely functioning. Then you drag yourself upright with a sort of groan that implies both physical pain and a deep spiritual betrayal. There it is, a perfect crust of white, laced across the pane, curling like delicate little feathers. It's beautiful, in the way betrayal sometimes is. You stretch a finger out from under the blanket pile, the sacrificial lamb of digits, and you press it to the glass. Your skin sizzles in protest. The cold bites down, sharp and smug, but you press it there anyway, drawing a shaky line through the frost until your name appears. Well, not all of it, just the first 3 letters before your knuckle gives out and the cold wins. You stare at the half-formed name. It feels oddly powerful. That childish act of claiming a little space on a window you don't own, in a home that barely holds itself together. Like maybe if you mark it enough, it'll start to feel like something more than just a drafty wooden box filled with hay and secrets, and that one unsettling patch on the wall that may or may not be growing. Behind you, someone coughs violently and then rolls over, pulling away half of a blanket that was mostly yours anyway. You don't react. You don't have the energy for it. Instead, you just place your forehead against the glass and you listen to it whisper. It doesn't really speak, but you imagine it does. And what it says is cruel. You chose this, the frost hisses, which is a bold statement coming from frozen condensation, but you let it stand. Technically, you didn't choose this. No one wakes up and says, "Yes, this is the life I crave." Splinters in my elbows, a frostbite flirtation on my toes, and a goat that farts in her sleep. You didn't pick it. You were born into it, woven into the straw with the rest of your family, wrapped in layers of hand-me-down wool and low expectations. But still the frost judges. You lift your hand, now numb and shiny, and you try to blow warm air on the window. It fogs up briefly. Then the frost fights back, reclaiming the space like a petty land dispute. You wipe the pain with your sleeve, and it squeaks loud enough to wake someone. A voice mutters from the far side of the room. "Stop communicating with the glass," it says, muffled and cranky. You don't answer, partially because you're not entirely sure you're awake, and partially because you're pretty sure you lost the moral high ground sometime around drawing hearts in the frost last night. A drip falls from the ceiling and hits your shoulder with insulting precision. The roof leaks in rhythms now. You've named the pattern above your sleeping spot, the slow betrayal waltz. You shift to the left, further from the leak and closer to the window. Your breath fogs again, dancing briefly before it vanishes into nothing. You cry. Not loudly, not even dramatically, just one single tear, because that's all your body can afford right now. It slides down your cheek, slow and freezing, and lands somewhere near your collarbone, where it joins the rest of the moisture that's slowly converting your linen shirt into a mobile swamp. The chicken stirs, not enough to contribute any warmth, but enough to look personally inconvenienced by your emotions. She pecks at the floor and she settles again. Her eyes close. You envy her more than you probably should. Outside, it's still dark. Not the good kind of dark that promises sleep and stories, and stolen sweets under blankets. No, this is the heavy kind. The kind that weighs on your chest and reminds you that the sun doesn't care about your frostbitten toes or your one remaining dry sock. But still, you sit by the window. You trace another line in the frost. This one curls into a spiral. Maybe it's a snail. Maybe it's a fingerprint. Maybe it's just proof that you're still here, still breathing, despite the house's best efforts to the contrary. The frost doesn't speak again, which is a shame. You are starting to enjoy the conversation. You murmur the usual prayer, the one about mercy and forgiveness, and not waking up frozen to the floor like a poorly insulated carrot. It's not elegant, but it's honest. Your words puff out into the cold air, barely warmer than the silence they disturb. There's no priest here to judge the theology. Just the goat, chewing loudly in the corner like she knows something that you don't. Your hands are clasped, but it's mostly for warmth. It's less about reverence and more about not letting your fingers fall off. You finish the prayer with a half-hearted amen that sounds more like a groan. Then you cross yourself out of habit and superstition and the faint hope that maybe God's paying attention tonight. A bowl lands in your lap with the grace of a falling stone. It's porridge, allegedly. You peer into it with suspicion. The texture is less of a meal and more of a building material. If you flipped it over, it might actually retain the shape of the bowl. If you threw it at the wall, it might stick. You're fairly certain it has in the past. Still, it's warm barely, and it smells vaguely of oats, or at least something oat adjacent. You take a bite, and you immediately understand why it's served right before sleep. It's not because it's comforting, but because it dulls all your senses to the point where unconsciousness becomes a mercy. The porridge clings to your spoon with an unusual loyalty. You tilt it sideways. It doesn't move. You consider just using your tongue, but it seems like a commitment you're not quite ready for. You sigh and you dig in, the way a miner might approach a new tunnel, cautious, resigned, and fully prepared for disappointment. Your teeth do their best, but the porridge fights back. It sticks to your ribs. It sticks to the roof of your mouth. It may, at this point, be attempting to form new alliances with your molars. You swallow, eventually, though it's not so much eating as it is defeating it. It settles heavily in your stomach, anchoring you to the earth. You imagine your soul slowly giving up and just sinking into the thick gray sludge. Across the room, someone belches softly. A shared ritual. A quiet understanding. This is dinner. This is penance. Not the grand, biblical kind of penance where a prophet fasts in the desert and speaks to angels. No, this is the kind of penance where you chew your supper until your jaw hurts, and you pretend the gritty bit wasn't a pebble, or a beetle, or both. You finish the bowl, not out of hunger, but out of obligation. Hunger left a while ago, probably ran off with your dignity and that one pair of dry socks you had. What's left is just duty, and maybe the fear that someone will offer you seconds. You hand the bowl back with a nod, which is peasant for thank you, and also, please don't make me relive that. Then it's time for sleep, or something like it. You crawl back into the straw, the blankets, the layers. The goat is already there, curled up like royalty. You scoot in beside her, not because you want to, but because you have to. Warmth has no pride. Warmth has no shame. Warmth sleeps wherever the goat will allow it. The porridge begins its slow migration through your body, warming you in little patches like lumpy embers. You can feel it working, anchoring you, numbing you, possibly beginning a new civilization in your lower intestines. You close your eyes and you whisper one last prayer. It's short, something like, "Let tomorrow be warmer or at least less crunchy." Then silence. Then sleep, maybe. Then the familiar creak of the wind pressing against the hut, looking for a way in. Always looking. The candle flickers in the middle of the table like it's auditioning for a ghost story. It doesn't illuminate so much as it just suggests light, casting long, trembly shadows that dance across the walls like they've got secrets. The whole room becomes sepia-toned and vaguely judgmental. It's the kind of light that makes even a bowl of turnips look emotionally complex. You sit near it, not because it helps you see anything, but because it feels like a moral anchor. One single flame, standing firm against the vast and endless cold. One tiny rebellion against a night that wants nothing more than to freeze the hope right out of your bones. It smells like wax and burnt wick and mild despair, but it's yours. Your sister sits across from you, her eyes wide, a blanket wrapped around her like a shroud. She leans in and she whispers, "I saw a ghost." You look up from your crust of bread, chewing slowly, not because it's dramatic, but because the bread is older than you are and you're worried about your teeth. You just raise an eyebrow. She nods furiously. "Right over there by the barrel. Pale and tall. Just watching." You squint into the shadows. There is indeed a shape. Long, slightly hunched, completely motionless. You sigh. "That's Uncle Merrick," you say. As she blinks. "Are you sure?" "Yes. He just doesn't have his hat on." When she gasps. "He's bald." Bald and brooding, you confirm. He's been that way since the pig incident. No one brings up the pig incident anymore. Partly because it was traumatic, but mostly because the pig still lives among you, and you're afraid it might be holding a grudge. Everyone around the room nods solemnly. Uncle Merrick doesn't move. He might be asleep. He might be meditating. He might be dead. It's hard to tell in this light, and no one's going over there to find out. The candlelight does terrible things to people's faces. Foreheads become cliffs. Noses cast shadows that are big enough to rent out. Your mother looks like a prophet. Your cousin looks like he's plotting something. And the goat, who has inserted herself between two sleeping bodies on the floor, looks like an ancient forest spirit who's seen far too much. The silence stretches out, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the occasional cough from someone who's either mildly ill or has been cursed. You watch the flame melt slowly down the wax, becoming shorter, weaker, more desperate. It won't last the night. It never does. You're not sure if it just gives up or if the darkness simply wins. But the outcome is always the same. The candle is doing its best, though. You have to respect that. Someone across the room lets out a sigh that sounds like it's been building up all day. Your father shifts under his blanket cloak and mutters about wax being expensive, as if the candle can hear him and should feel bad for existing. No one responds. We've all been passive-aggressively scolded by the candle before. It's a tradition now. Your little brother tries to use the candle to read a page of scripture. It's upside down, and you're fairly certain he can't actually read, but the gesture is noble. The candle gives him just enough light to pretend, which is really all anyone's asking for these days. You stare at the flame until your vision starts to blur, the glow doubling and dancing, and your eyes water. Or maybe it's just emotion, or the smoke, or the general ambience of being alive in a barely insulated wooden box, while winter claws at the roof like an angry cat. The wax puddles in the base, forming strange little drips that harden into frozen tears. You wonder if candles get tired, if they ever wish they were torches or fireplaces or just something less lonely. You reach over and nudge it a little closer, sharing its heat like a co-conspirator. Your sister leans in again. What if it really was a ghost? You look at her, then at the candle. Then it picked a terrible house, you say. She laughs, and it's soft and real, and it echoes in the small space like music. The kind of laugh that makes things feel slightly less cursed, even if it's just for a second. The candle sputters. Everyone flinches. Uncle Merrick finally shifts and grumbles something in a language that might be Latin or just sleep talk. The candle rallies. You sit back, wrap yourself tighter in your patchwork blanket, and just watch it burn. One tiny flame against the frost. One flicker of stubborn light in a hut full of contempt and cabbage. It's enough for now. You sleep like a rock in a landslide, surrounded by chaos, but just too exhausted to care. There is snoring in stereo, layered and looping like someone taught the entire room how to poorly play a didgeridoo. There's a persistent wheeze near your left ear, not quite human, but also not quite concerning enough to investigate. You assume it's your cousin, or maybe the goat. Either way, you've made your peace with it. Your straw pile rustles with every single movement, crunching like a nervous squirrel in autumn. The straw doesn't cushion you so much as it just announces every thought you even try to have. It creaks, it shifts, it pokes, and it occasionally squeaks in ways that straw really shouldn't. You're fairly certain it has its own opinions. You're just too tired to ask what they are. Somewhere near your feet, someone sneezes with the force of a thunderclap. You flinch, but only slightly. Your eyes stay closed. Your soul stays asleep. You've developed the medieval equivalent of noise-canceling ears. You are one with the din. A fart escapes over near the fire and earns a chorus of complaints, all muffled under blankets. No one admits it. No one has to. You all know who it was. It's a ritual now. It's part of the nocturnal soundtrack. The goat shifts beside you, her hooves clicking gently against the clay floor. She grunts, stands up, and promptly knocks over a tin pot with the grace of a drunk philosopher. The clang is immediate and painful. The echo bounces off the low ceiling and right into everyone's bones. Somewhere in the dark, someone swears creatively. Another person throws a slipper in the general direction of the noise. It hits your forehead. Still, you do not rise. Because you've adapted. You've reached a state that's beyond caring. A realm where the body functions on pure instinct and the mind just floats above it all mildly detached, like a saint or a heavily concussed monk. The cold nudges at your spine, a persistent little claw reminding you that warmth is temporary and betrayal is inevitable. Your blanket has shifted or been stolen, probably by your grandmother again. She moves like a ghost, and she hoards like a dragon. You know better than to try and retrieve it. Instead, you just curl tighter into yourself. Your knees nearly touch your chin. Your elbows make peace with your ribs. You tuck your face into the hood of your shirt, which smells like onions and survival. It's not comfortable, but it's familiar. A log shifts in the hearth. A spark snaps. There's a moment of silence, then a low groan from someone who rolled a little too close and realized it too late. A thud follows, then a short scream. You hear it all, but you remain in your nest. Because that's what this is now. Not a bed, not a place to rest, but a nest, constructed of thin hopes, recycled blankets, and stolen warmth. It holds you like a suspicious parent holds a secret, grudgingly and with conditions. You dream in short, chaotic bursts. Images flash of summer fields, of dry socks, of bread with actual flavor. A chicken walks by wearing a crown. Someone offers you a warm bath and then punches you in the throat with an icicle. It's not restful, but it's something. You wake briefly when someone steps on your foot. They whisper sorry like they mean it, which they don't. You grunt something that might be forgiveness or just gas. Then you're asleep again. This is your superpower now. Sleeping through the noise, through the cold, through the existential ache of knowing you live in a hut with 17 sentient organisms and exactly 0 privacy. You've leveled up. Your past self would cry. Your current self just snores. The fire crackles. The wind howls. Someone mutters about demons. You don't move. You don't blink. You dream about blankets that stay put, rooms that hold silence, and goats that ask permission before climbing into bed. But mostly, you just sleep. Because tomorrow is another day of pretending that soup is food and that the floor isn't judging you. And you'll need your energy for that. The first thing you notice is the absence of frost on your eyelashes. It's a confusing realization, like discovering your least dependable cousin has arrived on time for something. You blink. Your breath hovers for a second in the air, but it doesn't quite fog. You try again, just to be sure. Still nothing. You sit up slowly, the way you'd rise from a suspicious hammock, bracing yourself for betrayal. But the air just greets you with the chill of early spring, not the clawed fist of deep winter. It is tolerable. Suspiciously so. Your joints crack, but not from freezing this time. Just from age and overuse, and the lingering trauma of sleeping with your knee jammed against the firewood crate for 6 straight weeks. You stretch cautiously, like someone who's been burned too many times by hope. The straw doesn't crunch like it used to. It sort of sighs. You look over to the hearth, expecting the usual tragic remains of last night's fire, an ember or two clinging to life like a bad decision. But it's still burning. Not dramatically, not impressively, but enough to matter. Enough to say, yes, I remember you. There's even warmth, real warmth. The kind that doesn't involve bargaining with the goat for partial custody of her body heat. And then, as if summoned by your thought, you feel the goat shift beside you. Her hooves dig slightly into your thigh, just enough to remind you that your space here is conditional. She opens one eye, stares at you with the judgment of a disappointed nun, and then she goes back to sleep. Her breath smells like hay and defiance. You glance around the room, and you notice something even stranger. People are waking up slowly, but not from misery, just from habit. No one is shivering dramatically. No one is crying into their shirt. Your grandmother isn't hoarding all the blankets like a frostbitten dragon. Your brother's nose isn't blue. Someone opens the door, and sunlight pours in. Actual, honest-to-God sunlight, warm and yellow and unrepentantly cheerful. It hits the floor like a spilled blessing, catching on dust motes and old soup stains. It crawls up the walls, illuminating every single crack in the plaster and every cobweb your family has collectively chosen to ignore. It feels intrusive. It feels sacred. You are not emotionally prepared for this. A breeze slips in after it, light and soft, and smelling faintly of mud and something alive. You inhale like a man who's been underwater all winter and has only now come up for air. Your lungs don't protest. They just accept it. Your shoulders relax for the first time in what feels like years. You almost smile. The room begins to stir. A hen flaps off the windowsill with great drama, like she too has decided that today is the start of her personal renaissance. Your uncle mutters something about spring festivals and stumbles toward the door as if joy might be contagious, and he's not sure if he wants it. Your sister starts singing. It's off-key and it's about bread, but no one stops her. It feels right. You shuffle to the doorway and you squint at the world. The snow is retreating, sulking into the ditches like a villain who's just lost the final battle. Patches of earth are peeking through, brown and wet and weirdly beautiful. A bird chirps. Just one. You look at it like it's a hallucination. It keeps chirping anyway. You forgive it. You survived. Not with grace, not with dignity. You have cried over cabbage, fought a chicken for fire proximity, and worn the same socks for an amount of time that no modern calendar should ever recognize. But you are here, breathing, standing, mostly clean, definitely alive. Behind you, the goat shifts again and farts. Even that feels poetic.